Welcome to the Holistic Growth Podcast, navigating business and natural health and functional medicine, where we bring you insights and strategies to help grow your practice and amplify your impact. Welcome, everybody, to the Holistic Growth Podcast, sponsored and hosted by Get Healthy Store. My name is Dr. Tracey Stroup, and I am the Chief Health and Growth Officer right here at Get Healthy Store. Today, we have an exceptional guest, Dr. Swathi Varanasi, who is the medical advisor for MYOS. And if you haven't heard about MYOS and Fortetropin and what they are doing in the industry, well, you better hold tight because it is amazing. Well, Dr. Swathi, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that you're here. I got to meet you in person at IHS, and now we're together again. So can you give us a little bit of background about you first?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm an integrative pharmacist by training. So went to pharmacy school and was really trying to find the balance between the use of pharmaceutical drugs, so prescription medications, and quality of life and how that fits into an overall patient's lifestyle and their outcomes. And so I pursued a path of integrative medicine. So I was the first pharmacist in the US to have formal residency training or postdoctoral training in integrative medicine. So did that, had a wonderful clinic experience, and then moved on to work in industry. And so have experience with conducting clinical research and, educating healthcare providers on what they need to know about whether it's, a supplement product or a health tech platform, and really helping at the end of the day patients have their best lives.
Wow, we are so fortunate to have you on this side of the scope. I really think it's a really important part of what we do is understanding the ingredients and the physiological and biochemical interactions. And it's not always taught at the clinical level. So great to have you on this side. I love it. And today we're actually going to talk about understanding the clinical application of Fortetropin for muscle health and longevity. I had never heard of Fortetropin prior to MYOS coming on, and before it was Yolk, which is the direct-to-consumer product. So can you give us a little background? What is Fortetropin and how does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So Fortetropin is a bioactive compound, and it's derived from fertilized raw egg yolk. And so when we're thinking about how it works in the body, we've done quite a few studies, and Fortetropin is pretty well studied in general. And it shows that, with the use of Fortetropin, especially regularly, so using it every single day, that patients can experience a reduction in myostatin. And myostatin is a protein that inhibits muscle growth. So myostatin acts as a natural kind of brake on muscle development. And so by suppressing its activity, Fortetropin can promote muscle protein synthesis while reducing muscle breakdown. So in short, that's, creating more muscle while not losing the current muscle that you have.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I think I shared this with you, and this is just a little clinical spoiler alert. I had used this product with a client that I currently work with that had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and we're just watching the numbers for his CK levels, which basically tells us how much muscle wasting is happening, drastically drop. Now, I did some things prior to, but we are watching this child with the Fortetropin, and I had talked to your colleague, Dr. Chris, and he had given me a little bit of a guidance on what to dose. So I will keep everybody updated and posted. Maybe we'll bring you back and walk through that application, which would be great. So this is interesting because you said it's derived from fertilized egg yolk. So, what makes it different from other muscle supporting supplements like protein or branched chain amino acids or even creatine?
Yeah, definitely. So if we're thinking of like a protein powder or something like that, or a whey protein, those and branched chain amino acids provide amino acids, but they don't actually directly influence myostatin inhibition. So if we're looking at, okay, we want to preserve muscle, we want to create more muscle, a more direct option would be Fortetropin. I do think that using Fortetropin with a whey protein or a whole protein powder or supplement, as well as branched chain amino acids, is a great combination, but I don't think one could be replaced for the other. And then creatine, of course, is super popular right now. And creatine has been shown to increase ATP activity for short bursts of energy. So I think that that's great if you're incorporating that into like a workout regimen or a post or pre-workout, that sort of a thing. But it doesn't impact muscle regulatory pathways in the same way that Fortetropin does. Again, I think in combination, that would be a really, really great choice for someone who's interested in bodybuilding, but also thinking about preserving muscle in the long term. So creatine is going to help with that energy, that glucose metabolism, but also how are we going to preserve what we have and continue to increase our muscle? And I think the combination of all of these is really amazing. So that would be my suggestion, is like not using and thinking about one over the other, but tailoring it more to the patient experience and what they're trying to do right now. Is it increase their protein intake? Is it preserve muscle? Is it get more muscle? Yeah.
Yeah. So this sounds like it can cross all ages, with where you are in your health journey, fitness journey, and especially for older individuals who are trying to maintain muscle mass. I was reading studies and they said the wasting of muscle mass in correlation to strength is really the indicator of how well we age. So I think it's really interesting, that there is a product that actually can stop the wasting of muscle and help you actually attain and even maintain those levels. And I like the complementary approach. I think that's important. There's never one magic bullet, right? If that were the case, we'd all be out of business. No one would have a job. So lucky and unlucky that that's not the case. So tell me, your company MYOS, it started out in the animal world. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you moved into the human side of things. Have you noticed, I know, great success with animals. So maybe we talk just a touch on that to tell us what you've seen there. And then what have you noticed with any clinical trials you've run here, with applying it to human beings?
Yeah, so initially a lot of the research was done on animals. And so it was kind of a clear choice to be like, okay, we've done all these research studies on animals, worked with vets, like let's see how it works for animals. And the animal health business is thriving and doing very well. But what we also started to realize was, this could have a similar type of impact on humans. And so we've had a chance to be a part of quite a few clinical studies. One of them is a randomized controlled trial that was done at UC Berkeley in 2020 that showed significant reductions in myostatin levels, so kind of like what I was talking about before, and improved lean muscle mass in older adults. So actually in this participant population, the average age was 66, and the participants that were actually taking MYOS MD, or more specifically Fortetropin, for the duration of the study showed an improvement in 18% of their muscle protein synthesis, which is incredible, versus the participants taking the placebo. And these participants, it's important to note that they did not increase their exercise. They didn't increase anything else really in their life to really optimize their muscle health. They were just doing the same thing that they were doing before, and they were requested to maintain their consistent activity level. So that's one of them. The next one was on in 2015, University of Tampa, which was on young athletes. And so that one showed that with the use of Fortetropin, there was a demonstrated increase in muscle thickness and post-recovery, exercise, or recovery post-exercise rather. And then we also did another study in post-surgical orthopedic patients that suggested that Fortetropin reduced muscle atrophy and improved overall outcomes in those patients. So we're still considering thinking, what studies can we do next? But for now, these initial studies with our university partners really did demonstrate some incredible benefits.
18% increase with no exercise. You heard it here. Everybody needs Fortetropin right now. Get your MYOS. I mean, that's amazing. So I don't know if I had 18% with working out. You know what I mean? Like all this effort just to maintain the same 20 pounds I haven't been able to lose for 10 years, So now I'm going to add the Fortetropin and it's going to change my life. This is what I'm hearing. This is great.
Like to what we said before, the complementary approach, it's like, imagine if you incorporated Fortetropin every single day at the, recommended dose, but you also were strength training and eating a healthy diet and getting the right amount of sleep and, supplementing as well with other dietary supplements, I mean, that percentage could honestly even be higher. But this was only comparing, these participants that were the only intervention or change that they had was adding Fortetropin.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. So post-surgical, aging, athletes, it just sounds to me like this is an all-around win-win. So what about chronic disease and illness? Because a lot of our practitioners that tend to use our technology, they are in the influencer world, right? They're out talking about big and scary things that people might be concerned about, or they are in clinic, what I would say trailblazers, where they're influencing the masses, but applying these things very clinically and very individualized. Have you seen this work with Fortetropin in particular, chronic illness, and related to things like sarcopenia?
Yeah, so there have been studies apart from even what I mentioned with the studies where the participants were 66, like an average age of 66. So that is kind of speaking to sarcopenia and age-related muscle loss, and just muscle disuse. But also there are some really incredible kind of preclinical or early stage human trials that suggest that Fortetropin might be helpful in mitigating muscle loss in cachexia, or muscle wasting. So I do think we need larger, more definitive clinical trials, but there are some initial studies that show that there could be some potential there. And then also the studies that, even if we're not talking about specifically this participant population, but, research does suggest that reducing myostatin levels could help maintain muscle mass. So even if we just extrapolate from what we've learned from these other studies, I do think in, potentially like chronic diseases or cancer, that potentially Fortetropin could be used. I'm not familiar at the moment with a study that's specific to cancer-related muscle loss, but to me, just thinking from a very objective standpoint, I think that there could be some potential use, but more research is certainly needed. And then on the neuromuscular side, like for muscular dystrophy or ALS, or even like Becker muscular dystrophy, for example, in a 2016 study, it was shown that patients using Fortetropin were able to increase their lean muscle mass. So I do think for something like that, or Duchenne, like what you even mentioned earlier in the episode, that myostatin inhibition could be a promising target for muscle preservation for that sort of disease as well.
Yeah. And again, I have no clinical evidence as of yet, except for numbers that are going in the right direction, happy parents, and a very active 6-year-old. So we might want to get that into a trial and see what happens.
Absolutely. Or like a case study submission or a case series submission. I actually talked to someone like to Dr. Chris on our team about that as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, happy to provide that. And for the practitioners listening, I mean, what we need, Dr. Swathi, is your expertise in this industry, but also the case study submission so that you can look at that evidence and say, okay, let me apply the biochemical pathway knowledge to this case study. And that's where we really get movement and recovery. And I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I am, but chronic disease today is leaps and bounds than what it was 10 years ago. I'm seeing more cancer, more neurodegenerative disease, just more crippling things, and not just one. People have 3 and 4 chronic diseases at one time, numerous medications. So you're fighting against the disease. You're fighting against the medication that helps with just maintaining life with the disease. You're fighting against the deficiencies, the toxicity. And if you can have one thing that's going to go in there and just help preserve with a little bit of muscle mass, because at the end of the day, what do people want? They want to be able to do the things they used to do. It usually comes with the wasting and the breakdown of the body and the person's ability physiologically to do things. So I look at this one specific ingredient, this Fortetropin, as an add-in almost in every chronic disease, every situation, and even in healthy people. So I said a lot there, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I absolutely agree. And it's thinking about it from a multi-pronged approach, like how can Fortetropin be used in so many of these different patient populations that you mentioned, whether it is from a curative standpoint of like, okay, this patient is at this point, they are already experiencing sarcopenia, that would be a great fit, or even preventatively, which you just mentioned as well. It's like even before you get to the point where you are losing the muscle. Let's preserve what you currently have and let's continue to build and include Fortetropin in your daily regimen of movement and nutrition and other supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about dosage because that's always what it comes down to. Give me the protocol. The practitioners want the protocol. And do you notice that there is a dosage range for athletes, apparently healthy, for someone that is suffering with chronic illness versus a child? So I know I reached out to Dr. Chris Miletus and I had asked him, this is how old the child is. What do we do? And he did give me some input on that. So I didn't know how you felt across the board, if you could apply a dosage or a protocol. And I know you don't know any history and things like that. So this is obviously not something that you are putting out as this is the dosage, but what would your feelings be on increasing or decreasing dosage depending on age, chronic illness, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the goal is of the patient. And this is like, as an integrative pharmacist, that's like what the most important, set of questions are before, or the set of questions is rather, before you speak to and decide, what the right dose is. So what other medications is the patient on? What other supplements are the participants, or it's not participants, what other supplements are the patients taking? What does their lifestyle look like? Like, do they follow a certain dietary pattern, or do they have personal preferences, religious preferences, those sorts of things? And then we determine, okay, is Fortetropin the right choice? And if so, what is the right dose? So the standard clinical dose is 6.6 grams per day. And so in that, you'll have a little bit of protein, about 4 grams of protein, and really a lot of the bioactive benefits of the myostatin inhibition and everything that we've been discussing so far. But I really do think it is specific to what the patient is trying to achieve. The way that MYOS MD is formulated is that the dose is a little bit higher than the yolked formulation, and yolked is more of the consumer product, and it is more for people who are looking at it from a like bodybuilding preventative standpoint. So the dose is lower. So that's something to keep in mind. And then in terms of how long you want to use it, generally you'll start seeing benefits in 1 to 2 months, but we recommend that this is something that actually you take every single day, kind of like you would incorporate like a B vitamin or like a vitamin D or something that is just a part of your regimen and something that you're taking every single day. And then you can take it anytime during the day. And so it really is, it doesn't have to necessarily be taken with food. It's just, how are you incorporating it in a way that makes the most sense for your daily life? A lot of the people who are taking this product daily, they'll put it in their smoothie or they'll sprinkle it on top of, their oatmeal in the morning or their yogurt bowl. So there's a lot of different ways to incorporate the powder.
Yeah, sounds like it. And, I have both flavors. So, it tastes good. Candace, who works here at Get Healthy, she loves the vanilla. She just tears open the pack, or she'll just take a scoop and just put it in her mouth and she just eats it like loves it. When we walked up to the table when we were at the show, she took one and ate it right there. She's like, I love that stuff. So I think that's a great thing because, compliancy is big. We want people to enjoy health, which, prior to what, probably 10, 15 years ago, maybe it was terrible. We didn't have things that tasted good. You had to force people to do shakes. And now I think the flavoring of things have really come a long way. So you had mentioned, just knowing a few things about the person. You mentioned medications. Do you find any contraindications with the MYOS Fortetropin or any interactions with nutrients, other nutrients? I'm sure there's positive interactions, but what about medications?
Yeah, so from a medication standpoint, because of the ingredients, it's raw fertilized egg yolk. There aren't really a lot of issues in terms of contraindications. I mean, if someone has an egg allergy, of course, please do not take Fortetropin. Or if you have, if you don't consume eggs for like personal reasons, like you're vegan, or for religious reasons, then that would be another, reason I would not recommend Fortetropin. The other thing to consider, it's not a contraindication, it's more of like based on clinical discretion, is, some of the HCPs that we've talked to are like, what if I'm giving Fortetropin with someone who has high cholesterol? Because there's high cholesterol, or quite a bit of cholesterol in the Fortetropin product. And so I would recommend it's based on, what you as a healthcare provider think is the right fit for your patient. But if the participant, oh my God, I keep saying participants, you're talking about studies, but if the patient is maxed out on a statin, so like a high intensity statin, so it could be like an atorvastatin, for example, because they have high cholesterol, it's case by case, but perhaps that's maybe not the right fit for that patient because they're already, they already have high cholesterol. So to incorporate something like a supplement that also has quite a bit of cholesterol in it is something to take note of. And then in terms of medications, there aren't really any medications that I would say, oh my gosh, like definitely don't take it with them. But I do think there are some medications, if you're on them, that Fortetropin could actually be beneficial, like steroids, for example, whether it's like corticosteroids or other types. There aren't any direct interactions, but with steroids, Fortetropin could help support muscle retention, because that's one of the kind of side effects associated with corticosteroids is there could be some muscle loss. And so that is one thing to keep in mind. Also like others, like anti-inflammatories, for example, like NSAIDs or COX-2 inhibitors, like they could potentially work synergistically to reduce like muscle inflammation associated with them. So we don't have like research on either of these. I'm just kind of speaking objectively what I think could potentially be a good fit. So those are just some things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think cholesterol, overall gets a bad rap. I think cholesterol is a good guy, but the cholesterol from food, just so people are aware, it has a 2-hour half-life in your body. So it doesn't impact those cholesterol numbers as much as we think, which is why when they tried to go on the bandwagon of stop eating eggs to lower your cholesterol, it didn't work. And then they were kind of like, oh, oops, we didn't know, but you can eat eggs again. So I actually just had this conversation with my mother. She's over 80. So she was like, wait, are we back to eating eggs again? I was like, yeah, mom, that was like 1996 that they said it was okay. So, keeping her up with the times a little bit. Yes, just in case anyone's afraid. I would say there are some, and I just want to put this out there because I work with a lot of people that have different types of cancer. And one of the blood cancers can have a high CoQ10 associated with it. And actually, they're studying statin drugs as an off-label type of cancer treatment. And, not FDA approved or anything yet. So not putting that out there as such, but it has been talked about. And what it does is it blocks the pathway within that. And so something like this may not be the best choice for someone in that particular realm. So again, so individualized, which is what I love about our industry, is we can get down to the nitty-gritty with people and provide these incredible products that will help everybody, So what do you think? Have you had any pushback because it is egg? Have you had a lot of pushback?
That's the only pushback that I've had is the cholesterol discussions. You just have to, chat with them about like exactly what you just said. It's like the half-life is very short, but it's also, cholesterol. I mean, a lot of the high cholesterol that we see, part of it is from, a family. Some of it's just genetic, right? And so some of it, like even no matter how healthy people are eating, they could, just have familial high cholesterol. So it is a bigger discussion. And that's why I say it's not a contraindication. It's just dependent on what the clinician thinks is appropriate.
Sure. And what the client and patient is comfortable with. Some people, they just are like, no, I really don't want to do that, which is fine. There's 100 other things we can be doing. But I personally think, when I got introduced to this, I was like, why haven't I ever heard of this before? Where has this been? And it's very easy to use. Like I said, you can just take it. If you have the vanilla, you can just literally put it in your mouth and chew it up, and it tastes like vanilla cake batter. You can add it to your shakes. Like you said, you can put it over your smoothie bowls in the morning or add it to your yogurt. And it just gives you that little edge that I really think we've been missing. And I know we have beaten the GLP-1 pathway to death. I know that for the last year, but I do want to hear your professional opinion on the positioning of this with people taking injectable GLP-1s or people that aren't, and either population that is looking to enhance GLP-1. A, it's gut health. B, it's hormone balance. And C, it is having muscle mass in order to modulate glucose into the cells, right? Because when you strength train, you're getting that glucose into the cell without insulin. And so I just want your opinion on, what do you think of Fortetropin with those populations?
Yeah, so with patients that are already taking GLP-1s, I think that it's an incredible choice to add to their regimen. It would not be used like in place of the GLP-1. It's not a replacement, but rather thinking about their comprehensive regimen. Because as patients, and as most people probably know, as patients are taking GLP-1 drugs, their appetite is decreased. So they're not eating as much, which is a lot of the contributing reason as to why, patients lose weight. But when they're losing weight, they lose fat, but they also lose muscle. And just as you mentioned earlier in our discussion, a lot of the newer research in the last 5 to 10 years is talking about how longevity and quality of life is really tied to muscle health and strength. And so if patients are taking GLP-1s, yes, they're losing weight. Maybe they've gotten to the dress size they want, but they're also losing that muscle. So being able to preserve that muscle you currently have, but also build muscle in addition, is where I think Fortetropin is a great addition to the GLP-1 kind of regimen. But it's not just, Fortetropin and GLP-1. In my opinion, it's also, what are you doing in terms of aerobic exercise? So, are you walking around the block a few times a week? I always ask patients to start there rather than go to a gym, which can be really intimidating to people. So are you walking around the block? And when it's cold out, I pace around my apartment until I hit 5K here and there. So it's, it can be a lot simpler than people think. And then, what are you eating? So it's really important that, especially when your appetite is so much lower, that what you are eating is focused on protein and fiber. And so, you need to ensure you're getting high quality protein. That could be from lentils or steak, whatever your choice of protein is, hopefully a complete protein, that you're getting that in and you're getting enough of it, because that helps with you feeling full and feeling satiated, all of those great things.
This episode is brought to you by MYOS MD. What if there was a natural way to reduce the muscle loss we all experience with age? Let me introduce you to MYOS MD. MYOS MD is a powerfully unique supplement designed to reduce muscle loss, whether it's through aging, injury, illness, or weight loss. The secret? Fortetropin, an all-natural bioactive compound developed by top scientists and researched at some of the world's finest institutions. Here's how it works. Fortetropin has been clinically shown to lower myostatin, increase muscle protein synthesis, and reduce anabolic resistance. In fact, in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study at the University of California, Berkeley, men and women aged 60 to 75 saw an impressive 18% increase in muscle protein synthesis with Fortetropin compared to a placebo. And subjects saw these results with no additional exercise. This isn't just a supplement, it's science in action, helping your patients build muscle, recover faster, and live powerfully. To learn more about the research and benefits of MYOS MD, visit myosmd.com today.
And then, in addition to that, do you need additional, supplementation? That could be through a fiber supplement, because I know that I'm always urging patients to eat more fiber because fiber and protein need to work in tandem. And the average American, I think it's 95+% or something, don't get enough fiber. So, if you're not getting it in your food, totally fine. You have a lower appetite now. then like think about a fiber supplement or something to ensure that you're still hitting all of your like macro and micro nutrients that you need to be getting. So I mean, I could continue. There's so many other things like the importance of hydration and things like that, sipping water throughout the day, considering electrolytes if that's something that you need. But, I could go on and on.
Well, we love that because these are practitioners listening, and some people that are just listening in. Obviously, it's a podcast, anyone can find it. But, I love to lay the entire lifestyle protocol out for them because, we get specialized in what we get specialized in, and then you get hyper focused. And all of a sudden, there's this thing that pops up. And it's like, oh, wait, there's a new thing in the industry, and everybody has to look and then hurry up and figure it out. And the reason I asked you about injectable GIP and GLP is, it hit the industry hot and heavy, and we had to navigate that. Not only the fact that personally I really love peptides, and I was looking at that industry misusing peptides and being like, whoa, hold on a second, what just happened? Why are we abusing peptides and having people starve and lose muscle and all the things? And then I got introduced to Fortetropin, and it was one thing that I could use when people came to me and said, hey, I want to get off this. I've lost a lot of muscle. I don't feel good. I was like, great. Here's one thing we can put in along with optimizing your protein macros. And now we need to strength train. And let's take a look at your hormones and gut health so we can keep what you've done, but still maintain and attain some muscle. And that's the big problem coming off of an abused regimen of GLP-1s or GIPs, is that they've wasted so much muscle. They need a muscle regeneration program, not just a weight loss maintenance program. It's a muscle regeneration program. And I think this fits perfect in that. If practitioners could switch their mindset today, rather than taking somebody off of a GLP-1 journey and saying, we're going to maintain that weight loss. No, we want to attain some muscle mass because the weight is going to come back if the metabolic function is low. So
absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up strength training. That's the one part of the regimen I think is so important that I didn't mention in my very long list in my last answer. So yeah, I'm very glad that you brought that up because that's so important to fortify the muscle over time. And again, I don't want people to be freaked out about like, oh my gosh, then I have to go to the gym and I have to lift 200 pounds. It's not that. You can start with like 1 pound small weights. Like it doesn't have to be something that is so overwhelming or intimidating to start, but then you build up to it over time once your muscles are ready for more weight.
Well, we don't talk about the core foundations as much as we should. And, what I heard earlier, in case anyone needs me to repeat it, is you can get 18% gains doing nothing right out of the gate. So just starting today, which I will be adding this to more things. So I really appreciate this product. What's in the future for Fortetropin? What are you guys looking to do? Where are you going to start? Where are we going to start seeing you? Give us a little insight if you can, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think Fortetropin's role in muscle health is going to continue to flourish. And I think as we talked about today, I mean, addressing the sarcopenic population. So as we age, we just inevitably lose muscle regardless of, all the things that we think we're doing. And so how can we bolster that patient population with preventative strategies, but also like when patients are going through that, thinking about like certain patients, even within that scope is like our next power panel for MYOS MD. So we do like a monthly or a bi-monthly rather feature of an expert talking about muscle health in their particular realm of expertise. And so we have a women's health expert coming on. She's a menopause expert specifically. So I'm very excited to hear about her insights. And that's something we'll continue to do at MYOS is bring education to healthcare providers. And of course, like thinking about it through the personalized lens of what's going to work for these, different patients. And, in addition to that, thinking about post-surgical cachexia, thinking about athletes, because we have a really compelling study in athletes. So would love to think about from a bodybuilding or even biohacking perspective, how we can continue to increase, its use in that group. And then Also in physical therapy and rehabilitation, and chiropractic, I think there's so much potential use as we talked about today, and the way that Fortetropin can be applied to so many different populations.
Yeah, I would love to get those studies. We can probably link them in the
Yeah,
show notes
definitely. Mhm.
so
Yep.
that the practitioners can really look at all of the studies. One of the scopes, and we can kind of finish on the longevity scope. I think in the first time in our history in the last few years, we actually are dying younger. It's the first time. And if people and practitioners don't think that the aging gracefully longevity space isn't a place that they should go, you absolutely should. I really think rejuvenation needs to be the next big push. I think the last 10, 15 years was detoxification, right? We had a detox for everything, a gut detox and a heavy metal detox. And I think that's very important. But what I'm seeing is long-term chronic illness and wasting. And I think the next big push has to be rejuvenation. And this is one product that fits everywhere, the Fortetropin. And I've actually looked at it with some peptide regimens that I would, suggest to people like BPC 157. That's for tissue repair, but you add that Fortetropin in with that regimen because it's not just one thing, right? I think people jumped on the peptide wagon and they were like, oh, GLP-1 works for weight loss, so we can use one peptide for everything else. And that's just not how it works. Peptides work in synergy and they only work as well as what you have in your body. So, thymosin, beta 4, CJC, and even like follistatin, which is a peptide that lowers myostatin, actually, the Fortetropin performs better. So, I mean, there's cost associated. Your product is much more affordable. So I just want the rejuvenation practitioners to be listening to this. Think about your complementary protocols. Think about where this fits, not just within chronic disease and helping people in that realm, because yes, we do. But what about the longevity? Everybody wants to feel better and have more quality. That's what we're losing, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I love the reframe calling it rejuvenation, and this shift from detoxing to rejuvenation. I will say, like at the Integrative Health Symposium, in addition, like a few weeks ago, or maybe it was only last week, I also went to Expo West, or the Natural Products Expo West. And so I do see some shift of, almost not necessarily rejuvenation, but I don't see anyone talking about it in that way. But I do see this idea of like, okay, we're done detoxing, but now we need to fortify things almost. Like there's like a lot of new fiber supplements and a lot of new ways, like delivery systems, like gummies and things like that, where people are like, okay, like how do we get this to the consumer in a way that's going to resonate with them? And then there's still a lot of work that needs to happen on gummies for sure from a, ingredient standpoint and everything. But a lot of companies are thinking about, okay, we want to get, this next step of gut health. Now we've detoxed it, but let's think about how are we going to fortify the gut lining? How are we going to think about the next step? And I think the next step for a lot of companies is thinking about, okay, like fiber, I think is going to be really big and is a part of that rejuvenation discussion.
Your stat on fiber is almost as shocking as the stat on metabolic health, right? We're terrible at both. 90% of people on both sides. You don't have any metabolism, metabolic function, and your fiber intake is very low. So, hey, one thing at a time, adding in some more fiber to help the body utilize it, all great. So, gosh, thank you so much for being here. This sounds like a win-win product all the way around. So, guys, if you have not tried MYOS, Fortetropin, MYOS MD is on the catalog. You can add it to your Get Healthy store if you have a Get Healthy store. If not, you can reach out directly to MYOS MD and get a wholesale account as a practitioner. We will make all of those links available in the show notes. You also host a podcast for them and different webinars. Can you tell us a little bit of how our practitioners can connect with those?
Yeah, absolutely. So we post all of our recordings if you're not able to catch them live on YouTube. So we have our entire catalog of at this point, many, many episodes that are all on the MYOS MD YouTube page. So you can check them out there. And then we have them twice a month now, where we're featuring experts across different, disease expertise or therapeutic areas. So we have everyone from a candida expert like Dr. Biamonte all the way to Dr. Furman talking about nutrition to, our women's health expert, Dr. Larissa Ferdinand, who's coming on in 2 weeks now. So we have a lot of different big names across the integrative landscape talking about how muscle health plays a role in what they're doing now. And a lot of them are already, using and thinking about Fortetropin as a great ingredient and part of a comprehensive regimen for their patients.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very exciting, everything that's coming up. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise and your vision. I so appreciated it. I learned a lot. Guys, don't forget to add this product to your Get Healthy store. Make sure that you're letting your patients and clients know about this. I mean, everyone from kids to grandparents will benefit, from athletes to those that are suffering chronic illness, women's health, men's health. It's an everywhere product, an everyday product. Thank you so much, Dr. Swathi, for being here. And do you want to leave us with any parting words?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to learn more like about the podcast or anything I mentioned, you can go to myosmd.com. So myosmd.com. All the information is there. We also have a really exciting white paper coming out soon that I've been working on with some members of the team, like particularly talking about Fortetropin in the context of GLP-1. So if you want access to that, you can email us, you can get on our email list, and we'll be sending it out to our HCP networks. We have that in the pipeline. And yeah, the podcasts are on LinkedIn Live. So we try to make it as easy and simple as possible for people to access the information. And if you want to ask any questions, I'm available. We have a full medical advisory board as well as our team of experts internally.
You guys are great, and you're always so responsive. So thank you again, guys. Don't forget to share this with somebody that can benefit from this information. Make sure you subscribe and like our channel. All right, Doctor, thank you so much for being here. And to everybody that has tuned in today, we thank you as well.